Welcome. Today I'd like to take a moment and explain to you a little bit about the 3 levels of consciousness, or the circles of self. So as we go through this, I'm going to use a model to help demonstrate what it is I'm talking about, and to help you become a little more familiar with kind of some of the inner workings as we go through this process. So each and every one of us is very familiar with this circle of self. Actually, Plato said the circle the soul was a circle, and the circle we were analyzing was ourself. Very true, very accurate, and kind of as we go through this, you'll see how. So basically, if we consider the outer circle, or the outer kingdom as it were biblically, the outer circle is comprised of everything that we see, everything that we hear, everything that we feel, taste, touch, all the emotion, or all the sensory perceptions and inputs that we receive. On the outer world, we have, let's say we divide this into a circle. On the outer world, we have all the things that we like, all the things that we enjoy, all the things that make us happy, make us proud, make us fulfilled, all the things that bring us joy of some sort or another. These things can be based in ego, they can be based in success, they can be based in relationships or compliments that we receive, with all of them being good on one side, and let's say bad or negative on the other. So if this is a good experience where somebody tells us that we are exceptional at something, its opposite would be across where somebody tells us that we're not very good at something, and so on around the circle in degrees as we experience. If this is where we are at the pinnacle of wealth and prosperity, this is us being the poorest and most desperate that we've ever been. So we go through life on this outer circle, experiencing good and the things that we like, and the bad and the things that we don't like. And we each categorize where these things fit in, how important they are. We decide, each and every one of us, how much emphasis we're going to place on money, how much emphasis we're going to place on career, or relationships, or the opinions of others, and so as we can see, as we go on and on and on down the list, we each have our own circle of outer world, and what is important, what we label as good, what we label as bad, and these things end up becoming our driving forces, things that push us, that motivate us. They can also, on the bad side, be the things that trap us, be the things that limit us. The bad things in this outer web or circle would be things, they could be jealousy, they could be anger, they could be all of the negative emotions and feelings reside on the bad or on the negative side. I would say this is kind of akin to what Jesus referred to as bondage. These things over here would be what the Buddha referred to as suffering, the things that bring us anguish, suffering, heartache, pain, the things that tie us or connect us to, oh, I want to do this but I can't, because that story then gets rooted somewhere over here on this side of the circle. With, of course, its opposite on the other side. If you were free from all constraints, what would you do? How would you do it? Blah, blah, blah. So this, level 1, which every single human being on the planet has experience with, is the outer kingdom, the outer world. The second level of self occurs on the inner kingdom. The inner kingdom, or in this case, level 2, is the world where we start running into mind, where we start thinking about all of the experiences that we've had. We start thinking about all the interactions, we start thinking about different ways and different formats on how to bring more of the good to ourselves and how to avoid the bad. Sometimes we come up with good strategies, sometimes we come up with poor strategies, sometimes we get into a loop where we keep making the same choice over and over, looking for an outcome or an experience, and we just continue us in that little area. And there are so many countless places for us to experience, all with the point of knowing who we are, the journey to the center of self. So I can do this for years, and I can identify myself with, let's say this is my job. I identify myself with this job. Let's say I'm a Marine. I'm identifying with being a Marine. So my whole life, my whole foundation, all my experiences become about me as a Marine. This is good, this is fine, with the exception of A, it limits us from all the other portions of who we are, and B, what happens when we are no longer? What happens if we get discharged? What happens if we are injured? What happens if we just expand our career and retire? Then we are no longer who we think we are. This is the identity crisis that many people have at some point in their life, usually later in life, obviously. This is also one of the issues and points where we find where retirement seems to be the #1 killer among older individuals, and that's because the retired person loses their meaning and purpose, their sense of who they are and what life is all about. Anyway, the inner world, the mental component of all of this, we actually see something happen, we look to the inner world, and then we decide what we think about it. We decide how we're going to interpret it. We interpret things good as typically being positive, and we typically want those. We interpret things negative or bad that happen to us, and we look for blame, we look for fault, we look to avoid these things because we don't want these things occurring in our life. And so as we move around the circle, we begin to realize that all of our cause and effect, we have a mental mindset, we want to experience a certain thing, so therefore we make a certain choice, and that choice then shows up in the outer world as what happens, which is our experience. So, choice and experience is infiltrated through mind and the outer world. The inner kingdom and the outer kingdom balancing out. With every choice comes experience. With every experience, we may have to make a choice. And so the interplay between these of good and bad, or thought and outcome, is what we experience as the daily ongoing process of life. The journey of life, the school of hard knocks, sometimes good, sometimes bad. And it circles around, and each one of us goes through all of these processes over and over and over. Well, on this representation, the 3 circles, what we see is that anytime we're on the negative side of this circle, anything that happens that we perceive as bad ultimately ends up going on the inner circle, and it ends up creating thoughts, feelings, and situations that create suffering, anxiety, pain, you name it, anything negative, anything bad. The mind interprets all of this as being bad, negative, or harmful in some way. This leads us into fear. Fear is the great enemy. It is exactly why the Bible and the ancients talked about using perfect love to cast out all fear. When the mind is fearful, it makes choices of avoidance. It makes choices of based out of, if I'm afraid in a relationship, I'm going to experience jealousy. I'm going to experience probably being someone who is going to be suspicious. I'm going to experience anxiety that my partner will leave me. I'm going to walk on eggshells as I tiptoe around feeling insecure, all based in fear, which then leads me to have bad experiences or bad relationship. And as the more fear I bring into the relationship, the worse the relationship gets. And it's a circle that continues on and on and on. On the other side of the coin, if I am completely experiencing a loving, kind, caring relationship that is filled with trust and all of the finer qualities that we typically associate with a relationship, my thoughts are good. My thoughts are happy. My thoughts are healthy. My thoughts are of care and of concern, of freedom. I'm not thinking things like jealousy or suspicion. I'm not thinking of distrust or mistrust. I'm not thinking of all the negative possibilities, the what ifs. And so my experience is very good in the relationship. And so as we move through, we all know all kinds of relationships exist. There are those that are based in passion. There are those that are based in trust. There are those that are based in friendship. There are those that are based in understanding, in mutual respect, in work environments, and love relationships, and siblings, and friends, and a myriad of things, all of which make up the outer world that goes on then to interact with our inner kingdom. I'm telling you this journey, and it's important that we understand this, because these two worlds interact in an ebb and flow. The outer environment and the things that occur can poison or create a negative mind, or they can heal and create good thoughts and a good mind, which is going to then lead to more good experience, and so on. So as we move through this, realize that it's in this space in between the outer kingdom and the inner kingdom that we experience joy on this side of the circle, or suffering on the other side of the circle, all as determined by us. Now you can see when you're operating from the outer circle, it becomes quite situational. So circumstance plays a great deal of control into the realm of whether we experience bad or whether we experience good. Realizing the cause and effect is only this good when you have control. And so what we do is we all fight for control. 80% of the choices that each one of us make are in an attempt to control something. We may be trying to control or avoid pain, suffering, bad things happening that we've had happen before, accidents, mishaps, and so we become planners, we become control freaks maybe, where we have to make sure everything is exactly this way because something in our past showed us that something really bad can happen or that we have undesirable outcomes. On the other hand, we can try and control and bring all these good things. We can try and control relationships. We can try and control our own emotional happiness. Drug addictions, alcohol addictions come from us trying to control our mood states and our mental emotional bodies. All of these things that occur exist in between these two realms, which is all one great big battle for control. Now, once we actually get into the inner circle, what we realize is that there is another level, the inner kingdom, the holiest of holies. This place right here is the place that I would say is your essence, your consciousness, your spirit, your soul. This is who you are at the deepest core of your own individuality. It is in this place that you begin to understand the whole concept of perfect love cast out all fear. Well, in here is where perfect love exists. And the reason it casts out all fear is because fear only exists as we bounce in between mind and outer world experiences and what we think or feel or how people see us. On the innermost part of our essence and our being, there's no such thing as fear. Fear doesn't exist because we realize that it is just a construct that is created in the outer world, typically revolving around ego, where our ego fears looking bad, where our ego fears making a mistake, where our ego feels being judged, where the ego is able to fear being made to feel shame or embarrassment of any kind, or we're trying to lift it up and we're trying to build pride, we're trying to build conditions of worth, where we feel worthy because. All of those things are constructs of the ego and of outer world experiences and the inner world of our thoughts. Really, in essence, the whole concept of this centermost point is a place of the higher self, a place where enlightenment would exist in this place. What we begin to realize is that there is a thinker behind the thoughts. Now, how do we know this? Once you start analyzing what you're actually thinking, you have met this part of yourself. Once you actually look and say, why do I think this way? What was I thinking? What am I trying to gain here? Is that really the best thought for me? Once you're able to start catching your own negative thoughts, once you're able to start becoming aware of your own negative thoughts, your own patterns of negative behavior, your own cyclical journey through these elements of the bad of thought and outer world experiences, you realize that you actually have the ability to consciously participate in what you're thinking, in what you're feeling, therefore creating what you're experiencing and what you're creating on the outside world. All of the things that you want to bring into your life, all of the things that you want to create, all of the things that you want to feel, the way you want to be, the way you want to be seen, all of these things are constructed at the core essence of your being in the highest self, your spirit, your soul, your divine identity. In this place, there's no need for self-judgment, because you realize that's just a thought, and that thought is no more valid than thinking that you are overly fantastic at something. Pride, opposite scenario, opposite side of the circle. If pride lives here, we're proud of ourselves for doing something great, then this is low self-esteem or disgust or something where we feel like we should have done better, that we're the worst. You know, the self-critic, we all have it, the inner critic. Now here's what we have to understand. There's a little voice that lives inside of each and every one of us that actually is both the critic, the one who tears us down, the one who says you're no good, the one who says you're not worthy, the one who says you're a loser, the one who says you're not thin enough, the one who says you're not smart enough, the one who says you're not wealthy enough, the one who says blah, 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 blah. And then there's another voice that says, yeah, you rock, you're the man, and then it leads through us. Nice job. All of those things, that little inner voice is the thought of mind. Behind that is the voice of the rational one, who is able to actually do so without the flavor of emotions, without disdain, without judging you, without raising you up. In fact, this one will say, really? Are you making this choice out of ego? Are you just trying to look good? Or is this really what you want to do and how you want to be? And the same thing, it can say, really? You think you're terrible? You think that's really that bad? Come on, everybody makes mistakes. Really? I mean, so you made a mistake. Pick up your bootstraps, get back on the horse, and let's go. Now you've learned something and you can take with you on this lesson. It's the one that is in balance. It's the one that operates without ego, without looking good, without the need for finance or money or this or that or the other, or to acquire stuff and possessions and materialism. It's the one that also would never condemn you, chastise you, criticize you, tear you down, tell you you're not good enough, tell you you can't, tell you that you're not smart enough, tell you whatever it is that you've heard all your life or the story that you've become to believe. It is one that is in balance, that would always say, love is the way. If you want something and you're willing to put in the time and energy to acquire and attain and practice and perfect, you can have it. If you don't want something, if you're willing to look and see what's going on in your world and you're able to understand the choices that you're making and the things that are driving that circumstance, and you're able to make a new choice or release yourself from that pattern, so be that. Realize this one simple thing. Most of the world seeks happiness. Happiness is an internal quality that can only be established by you. Otherwise, happiness, if the first time you're happy and sitting over here, something bad comes along and happens, and boom, now you're unhappy and you're miserable. That's not true happiness. That's conditional upon experience, upon happenings, outcomes. We'd call those accidents. The truth is, there are no such thing as accidents. There are no such thing as coincidences. Everything happens for a reason, and this reason is to help teach and shape and educate us about the way we interact with life and events, to understand ultimately that there is another layer or level of self that lives behind the one we think lives inside of us in our mind that we've grown up with, or ego. This is the spiritual nature that we were discussed. It is this being and this individual that I believe humanity is heading towards right this very second. I think this is the place of New Jerusalem, the higher self, the inner kingdom that Jesus spoke of. Heaven on earth is walked in and found in this place right here. This is Buddha's nirvana. This is, all of the ancients have their own methodologies and their own names for it. The bottom line is that once you achieve this place, the rest of this stuff becomes an illusion. It becomes a game. You understand that if you want to experience something, it's simple. All you have to do is choose a path that will lead to that experience. If you want to stop something in your life, it's simple. All you have to do is be aware of your thoughts and make choices that bring you what you want as opposed to what you don't want. So many times I often see somebody telling me that, well, I really want this in my life. And whatever this is, we then look at their choices. Well, if you want this, why are you making choices that bring you this? If you want this, all you have to do is make the choices that bring you this, and then you'll have that. And there's, well, I can't because all of these reasons and conditions. That is the struggle in between this area right here, between the outer world and the inner world. All of the thoughts, the reasons why we can't have what we say we want. The reasons seem completely valid, and they're completely powerful to each and every one of us, and they're different for all of us. But realize this is what's going on. You want to choose this, you will experience this. If you say you want to experience this, but you're not making choices that are bringing you that, in fact, in most cases, we bring choices that are bringing us the opposite and completely what we don't want. And so in this way, our choices are not in balance with our perception or what we want. Therefore, the experiences that we ultimately end up having are bad, are poor, are negative. And so we experience strife, guilt, grief, upset, discord of all different means. And I think this is why the Sufists say that flame of the seeker is discontentment. When you're discontent inside, you look inside. You look to solve. You look to understand. You look to change, to grow, to move on. One of the greatest travesties that can happen to us as people is when we get stuck on this outer circle, and if our life is going really good, why would we want to change or seek to look inward? We like the material possessions, we like the comforts, we like all of the things that we're experiencing, and so this is why I think that Jesus taught that it's harder for a rich man to get into heaven than it is to fit a camel through the eye of a needle, because those who have the good life and have all the material possessions and wealth and things going on that they like have very little reason to explore or change or go looking for that inner self that is based in this love and this spirit and this essence. All of this is basic information, just as we traverse this project, for you to come to know the higher, the innermost self that you are, the one that is beyond the thinker, the one that is beyond external circumstances and controls, the one who understands that every single thing, whether good or bad, happens for a reason and it has a purpose and a meaning. We, as the thinker, decide what that purpose and meaning is. We add meaning to it. Somebody said something to you, therefore they're obviously mean and not to be trusted, so therefore I'm going to hate them and go on to attack them. That's a choice. On the other hand, the internal thinker, wonder why that person said what they said. How are they seeing things? What are they thinking? Are they afraid? Are they concerned? Do they have an issue that they need assistance or help with? Or is this something that is just merely a perception that is false or not the way things really are that they're operating from? 9 out of 10 times we find that that is in fact the case. Misperception goes a very long way in creating a lot of our pain and suffering. Many times we assume somebody intended something, or we think that somebody meant or snubbed us or said something or gave us a look or whatever, that how many times goes on to make us upset or bothered, only to find out later that it wasn't directed at us, it wasn't about us, or they didn't mean it toward us, or it had nothing to do with us, and we cause ourselves anger and suffering and grief for no apparent reason whatsoever. On this level, on the inner level, we would not care. We would realize that, you know what, the only thing I'm in control of is me. The only thing I can control is my own thoughts, my own feelings, my own emotions, and all of those are within your control. Just when we're living out here, we don't think so, or we don't believe it, or it doesn't seem so. So, level 3 is the goal and what we're seeking to acquire and attain. And it is in this place where you will truly experience a place where perfect love casts out all fear, and fear is removed. There is no place for fear in a place that is devoid. There is no place for fear in a place that is filled with the light of love. And in this way, we understand the true self, the meaning and purpose of life, which is to bring us to this self. Now, realize, you may find this place, we find it in glimpses. We all have those moments where we think, what was I thinking? What was I doing? That's this person analyzing this person. As we spin and as the circles of life continue to spin round and round, sometimes we get pulled off one level, and even if it's intense enough, to another level, and we fight to come back onto this level, and we fight to go back into this level, and something happens, and we start thinking about it, and then all of a sudden we're back out on this level. And so, in essence, it's like a great big spiral graph that continues flowing. And ultimately what our job is to see this, or become aware of this interactive nature, and to actually decide when we're ready to get off the merry-go-round and when we're ready to stop the flow and stay. This is the place where we are our true essence, where we find out who we are. This is the place where we stop the outer illusions and the circles from spinning. This is the place where we become likened to the masters. The I am phase of life exists here, not out here. True happiness and peace reside in here, not out here. The mind is the mediator that functions between the outer world where we use our body and the inner world of spirit. The mind is stuck right square in the middle and is the mediator between these two worlds. And that's why it's important for us to get an understanding of our mindfulness, of our mental worlds, of what's going on. So, welcome to the 3 levels of consciousness, and may you take a firm understanding of who you are and reach it and become the best person you can be. Have a great day.